Listen to this episode if your brand is a handmade product currently, and you are at least thinking about possibly manufacturing it, but you have questions, you have concerns, and you're unsure how that process really works. You're ready to scale. You feel like the handmade side is adding a little bit of stress and confusion onto your life, but how does this process really work? That is what we are diving into today on the Small Business Growth Podcast. This is something that I do all the time with my clients. I love my handmade businesses. I've worked with many handmade business owners of all ages and stages and all of the different things, whether they're starting handmade or I have clients that are making over $1 million a year with handmade products. We always are talking about this idea of manufacturing goods. There's a lot of misconceptions, there's a lot of myths, and there's a lot of questions around it. And so we're doing a rapid fire coaching sessions episode today. I asked my community members inside of the Small Business Cafe, which is my free podcast community that you can join by clicking the link in the show notes. I asked them what are their biggest questions, concerns around manufacturing a product. And I'm putting those below and I am going to answer them in a rapid fire format today. This is something that I do all the time. I do not advocate for handmade business owners to be the next $1 million brand. I love handmade businesses. I think that they're wonderful. I have nothing against them. However, they are just harder to scale. They are harder to scale because it is taking so much of your time or your team's time, energy, effort, labor, to manage the team that it takes to grow, to create, to do the production, all of that. There will just be a plateau. There will be extra overwhelm, and there will be a point that it doesn't make sense for you to scale, or, a lot of different points, different areas within your business that are going to be really hard. And you basically have this decision to being like, do I want to maintain handmade and maintain the business that I have? Do I need to grow my team in order to make this make sense? Or do I want to manufacture? Am I okay with my sales plateauing and staying where they are? Do I want to build out a team, or do I want to find a way to manufacture my goods? There will be a breaking point in every handmade business owner at some point that will have to be that. Am I okay plateauing my sales where I am because I cannot manage to make any more products with who I am as one person? Am I okay building out a team, managing a team, hiring and firing, having benefits and all of that within the production staff? Or do I just want to have my products manufactured? Today, we are going to talk about how to navigate them, how to squash some of your concerns, talking about the misconceptions, is it right for you, and to answer some of my community's most burning questions about how to change your business from handmade over to manufactured. Before we dive into that, I just want to take 10 quick seconds to say hello. My name is Madison Page. I am the host of the Small Business Growth Podcast. I am a business growth specialist, and I help small businesses turn into brands so they can become the next household name category leader that they have always wanted to become. This is what we're talking about today. This is such an important conversation when we talk about turning a small business into a brand, because very often there is a major plateau in every handmade small business. And if you want to become a brand, manufacturing is a major conversation that we are going to have. I've had it with many people, and some of the major misconceptions that I hear very often are manufactured products are lower quality than the products that I can make handmade. My audience really loves that this is handmade. That's the only reason that they buy. All manufactured goods are made in bad working conditions. I know that that's a major concern, rightfully so, that people have, that their products are going to be made in a factory or somewhere that has bad working conditions. It's super expensive to get products manufactured. That is a major myth. Actually, at a certain point, it most likely is going to be much cheaper for you to get your products manufactured than doing it personally. A lot of times we start a business because we have a hobby or we have a craft or we have something that we really, really like. If your business is handmade, oftentimes you started hand making it because of the ease of it, because of the scrappiness of it, because that was just what you did. It didn't make sense for you to have it manufactured up front. And then all of a sudden you started to build your sales. You're starting to have, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 a month in sales. That's awesome. And now you're saying, holy cow, 80% of my time is just making products. And it's hard for me to keep up with the capacity that I have. You might not even enjoy creating it anymore. And all of those things do not have to be the case in a handmade business. It doesn't have to be more expensive. It doesn't have to be poor working conditions. It doesn't have to be lower quality. It doesn't have to be really rigid. It doesn't have to be super expensive up front. There's a lot of things that we can tackle here. I've worked with dozens of business owners to turn handmade into manufactured. It doesn't mean that your customers are going to go away. It doesn't mean that all of your products have to be manufactured overnight. You can just do a little bit of it, because I want you to think right now, how wonderful would it be for you to wake up tomorrow and not have to make a product? How wonderful would it be for even 60% of your sales that come in for you to just have to plop them in a box? You don't even have to hand make those products. product. How wonderful would it be for you to be like, all right, let's go to the inventory, let's pack it up. And that's all that it takes. You just have to fulfill the orders. You don't actually have to produce and then fulfill the orders. I have clients that were doing handmade clothing. And every time she would get an order, she would start to be like, oh my gosh, this is going to be 4 hours of my time to make this shirt. Like, I'm sick of hand making my dresses and my shirts and whatever that might be. And then all of a sudden we manufactured a product and she actually wanted to sell more. She actually wanted to make more sales because it opened up this idea that when she made a sale, it was just fulfilling it. It wasn't actually producing it and then fulfilling it. So how this episode is going to go is I'm going to rapid fire questions that were submitted. Some of these I added in there just because they were frequently asked questions, just out of transparency. I didn't get all of these questions answered, but these are questions that I get asked very often. We're going to run down, we're going to make it really short and sweet, and we're going to rapid fire through these to try to squash some misconceptions and give you a little bit of a strategy of how this really works. First things first is I really want to keep my products handmade. Can't I just hire someone to help me make them, or should I manufacture instead? This is a really common stage that people are like, I'm just going to hire for production. Maybe you have even hired for production already. And now when you start thinking about manufacturing, it's scary because what is that person going to do? Can't I just hire more of that person? So yes, you absolutely can just hire somebody to help you make your products. You absolutely can build out a team that is going to help you basically be your own factory to make these products. But there's a lot of things that go into this. When it comes to livable wages and things like that, we need to make sure that you are paying your people something that makes sense. Another thing that we have to look at here is eventually these people may need benefits. They need to be managed. They need to be hired. They need to be fired. All of that comes back on to you. Whereas when you manufacture, they handle payroll, they handle hiring, they handle firing, they handle whatever benefits make sense outside of there. They handle everything. They handle it. So you don't actually have to take the effort and the energy in order to actually manage people internally. So if you are somebody that managing a team sounds really fun, if you are somebody that having a team, having people within the office feels really fun for you, handling those interpersonal things, if that sounds like something that would be really enjoyable for you, hiring, firing, managing team, interpersonal things, PTO, all of those things, if you're like, no, I love to lead people, that sounds like really fun for you, it might make more sense for you to build out that team and you can have them. But a lot of times it's actually more expensive because of the benefits and all of that comes with it. But there is some fulfillment that can come with that as well. Why manufacturing is really helpful here. And I'm not here to convince you to manufacture. I'm just trying to add some value and to squish some of the misconceptions and the myths that are out there. The interpersonal side of running a business. I have had many clients that built out a team and then we unbuilt out their team because all of a sudden they realized what it takes to actually lead people and build out a team and to manage a team and to train a team. All of that goes away when it comes to manufacturing. So, can't I just hire somebody to help you make? Yes, you absolutely can. But of course, that comes with people that don't do their job correctly and all of that. Whereas these other people kind of manage the quality control and all of those other pieces of it. How do I find a good manufacturer for my product? Number one, I just want to say there is a hierarchy of manufacturers. Absolutely, you need to shop around when it comes to manufacturers. And it's actually really easy for you to find manufacturers. This is why I always say running my business has ruined shopping for me, because I've worked with so many people to find manufacturers of the premium in their industry. And so I know what it costs for that brand to make that shirt or that dress or those pants, because my client goes to that same manufacturer and I see what their order quantities are and how much it costs for them to make it. And I can understand what that markup is on that product. And so you can go out there and find a good manufacturer. Many of your favorite brands are manufactured. How many of your favorite brands that you are incredibly brand loyal to are handmade products? Probably very few of them. And so what we have to think about here is, how do you find a good manufacturer? Is you have to shop around. Definitely get samples, tell them that you're shopping around, try to identify which manufacturers are making which products. Sometimes they have NDAs, sometimes they don't. So you can ask, do you have a brand that I would know that you manufacture for within your facility? And a lot of times, like, my clients will build a startup and they are basically using the same manufacturer as their biggest competitor. And of course, making their own changes to it and changing around their product slightly, but they know the quality that's coming from it because they have already vetted it in some of these other brands. So you find a good manufacturer. There's a hierarchy of them. Your first manufacturer you reach out to might not be the case. Depending on certain products, understanding that like getting something made in China does not automatically mean that it's low quality. I think there's like this taboo nature of that well, it's made in China, it has to be low quality. There are many products out there that China is the only place that you can manufacture that product just because of the functionality and like the technology and the factories that they have and the machines that they have. They're the only people that have done the research and development to create those machines. So just because something's manufactured in China does not mean that it's automatically low quality. I think that's a really big misconception. I have many clients that get things manufactured in China that are really high quality and that are really wonderful products. If you want to get it manufactured within your country, that is an absolute value and moral system that you can have and that you believe, that is totally fine. I also have many clients that say, I want my products manufactured, but it's going to be, within the US, within North America, whatever. That is also another moral and value and ethical thing. So you get to choose what your standards of a good manufacturer are. In business, we have many opportunities to choose our values and to choose our morals. Some of my clients don't mind what manufacturer they use. Some of them are very rigid on what they care about and, what standards they care that they have. I have had clients travel to India, to China, overseas, to many different places, to Europe, whatever, to get their products manufactured and to see what the manufacturing facility looks like. How do you find a good manufacturer? You have to first decide on what your values are and what your standards are, and then do some searches, try to identify where other people that are creating something similar, you can use an Alibaba to see where are they creating something similar. And then you basically, you say, okay, these people are creating something similar. Let me work with them. Another big misconception is that these manufacturers are inflexible. They're actually very flexible because they want your job. They want your money. They want your business. So they're happy to be flexible and to change around what's already being made. Hey, I'm jumping in here for 30 quick seconds for those of you who are loving the podcast but wish we could dive deeper into every episode topic together. I have actually started a completely free podcast community called the Small Business Cafe for exactly this purpose. Inside this community, we dive deeper into every podcast episode, provide bonus resources, and actually host completely free monthly coaching calls with me. So you can get your questions answered. Plus, you get to submit your questions for our Friday coaching session episodes and connect with other founders too. If you have been loving being a part of this podcast and want to connect with other brand founders, plus get extra support from me, click the link in the show notes below to join. The next one is I loved making my product when I started. This was a hobby of mine, but now I absolutely hate it. My audience knows that I hand make my products, but now I feel like I'm capped and I'm sick of making it. What does the process of transitioning really look like? This is a really common thing, is that you started a hobby, you loved your hobby, you loved making your product, and then you turned your product into a business, you turned your hobby into a business, and now you don't love making it anymore, and now you're sick of it, but you feel like you're pigeonholed into handmade. This is why I always say, do not make your unique value proposition being a handmade product, because if that changes, then everything goes kaput, right? Then all of a sudden you have to explain to your audience why it's being manufactured and how it's still going to be really high quality. So handmade is not an actual unique value proposition. Being handmade is not a selling point. You shouldn't make it a selling point, at least. How do you actually make this transition is you basically explain, what does this mean for them? What does this mean for your consumers? You are probably capped and sick of making it, but to say that my audience knows that I hand make my products and that's why they buy, that is a you problem. You have done that within your marketing, within your messaging. So we have to take that out of your messaging, out of your marketing. Don't say handmade with love. Don't say unique, one of a kind, every piece. If you think right now that there's a possibility that you will manufacture anytime soon, take that messaging out of your mouth and stop talking about it and make your unique value proposition something else, the actual message behind using your product. The next one is how do I know when it's a good time to start manufacturing? Immediately, frankly. I think I am somebody that I would rather you manufacture your product much sooner than anything else. So how do I know when it's a good time to start manufacturing? If I'm going to give you a strategic answer, when you start to feel like your time equals money, because it will if you have a handmade product. If you absolutely despise managing and running a team, and that's something that you do not want to do. If you feel like the capacity is coming, but it's one of the most expensive mistakes people make is that they build a business and then they can't keep up with the capacity of their orders. And so they're constantly sold out because they're hand making their products and the lead time is really long. And then they have upset customers. In the world of Amazon, people want sales. People want their products immediately. They buy it, they want their product within 48 hours. I literally hate waiting 5 to 7 business days because things get shipped so quickly at this point. In the world of Amazon, people are getting products sent to their houses within 48 hours. The other day I was on the phone with my mom and she was complaining about, I don't even know, like her Stanley Cup was leaking and she wanted to fly with it to come to my wedding. And I was like, I'll have a leak-proof lid delivered to your house in 12 hours. And we did that because, that is how quick this world works. And if you have to start building building out this lead time of 6 to 8 weeks of these handmade products, it's a time to start looking at manufacturing. If you are starting to feel like your time equals money, if you tell me you are not able to actually work on your business because you are too busy working in your business, it's a time to look at getting something manufactured. What if I don't have the sales to cover my minimum orders quite yet? Another really good question. Again, manufacturers are happy to be flexible with you. They are happy to be flexible with their minimum orders, even though they say 1,000. Oftentimes they will do 500, they will do 100, whatever that might be. Oftentimes it's actually cheaper in the long run. Sure, you might look at, okay, this is going to take me a $20,000 expense up front. However, rather than, the smaller orders that you're making right now, however, it's actually going to cut your costs in a quarter. I just had a client that started to manufacture a product and her costs went from $20 down to $7 because she got them manufactured per product. So her profit margin 4x'd with this one decision to actually manufacture a product. Why that is because she decided to put the money up front to then get the money in the long term. Again, when we're looking to build a brand, we have to start thinking with long-term decisions. How great would it be for you to have 5,000 items in your home tomorrow or, in a couple weeks? How great would it be for you to then have an order come through and you just have to fulfill it as opposed to having to make it? It is a different business model. It will change how you run your business, but it will actually make you more motivated, more effective, more efficient, and it will actually help you grow faster in the long run because you actually have more time to working on the business as opposed to working in the business. So if you don't have sales to cover the minimum order, your manufacturer might be able to be flexible with you. It might make sense for you to put it on a credit card. I know I'm not a financial expert here, but get a loan, put it on a credit card, do something like that. So you then can actually make more profit on those items because in the long run, you're actually making more money, even though you had to take out a little bit of debt in order to make that make sense, but you're actually able to build wealth quicker utilizing that debt. Wealthy people utilize debt in order to make them more money. Okay. Remember that. Next one. And this is a little bit of a longer one. She said, I'd love to take the leap and really go in on my business. I make jewelry and badge change for corporate goths and other alternative adults to show off their edgy side while in an office and a work environment. Anyway, I'm so worried about the new taxes, tariffs, and constant changes surrounding businesses now, and I'm unsure if I will be able to navigate it if I decide to have my products manufactured and really go all in. Right now, I sell on Etsy, and I'm located in the US, but I'd love to start to sell a little bit more wholesale, but I'm so hesitant. Do you have any words of wisdom? So she's asking about a couple of things here. She said wholesale versus manufactured. I think she means manufactured, not wholesale. She's hoping to wholesale her products. When it comes to these tariffs, the tariffs are a really big thing that have been happening. It's not going anywhere. Some of them have been resolved really quickly, but we don't have any change in sight at this point. They could be lifted overnight and we never really know. There's a couple of things that you can look at here. Again, this goes back to how expensive would it actually be to have things manufactured. I have some clients that get things manufactured in China that have a very low cost to them. Yes, they are a 30% tariff or whatever that is on top of that, but it's still cheaper than getting it manufactured in the US because some things are incredibly hard or impossible to get manufactured in the US, or they are, just way more expensive to get manufactured in the United States, that they are okay eating that little bit of a tariff now, knowing that it might go away. Tariffs are a very common thing. They are not new. They are a very common thing that happen between countries, trying to find a country to manufacture that might have a lower tariff. You can get things manufactured in Canada or Mexico that might be cheaper as well with the USMCA agreement, or CUSMA is what Canada calls it. The US calls it the USMCA agreement, which is basically a North America trade agreement. This is a valid concern. Now, at this point, I might eat my words saying this, but this is a complete opinion and just a feeling from being in the industry for a really long time. I don't think they're going to get worse. I think the heaviness of the tariffs have happened. I don't think they are going to get worse before they get better. I think they are going to just get better. Again, that's an opinion, but I still would say to look into it and see what it would look like for the tariffs. It is just understanding international trade. It is going to be a front-loaded endeavor, and ChatGPT is really great with this, and they really understand. And there's also a lot of people out there that are helping people with these tariffs and these taxes. I have definitely helped a lot of people with this. It's mostly just tariffs. It's not really taxes. Basically understanding what it would actually cost for you, trying to find a country that has some sort of trade agreement that is better than the next. It is a valid concern. However, it still might be more inexpensive and easier for you to get something manufactured. My items are each unique as I don't use the same pattern on any of them. They all are one of a kind. They might be the same color or theme, but no two pairs are ever the same. How would I find a manufacturer that would still be able to create this one of a kind aspect? Frankly, you probably won't be able to, because the idea of manufacturing is a repeatable process. You might be able to have them say, this is something over and over again. You can have a smaller inventory. However, one of a kind is usually not a unique value proposition that is actually scalable. It is really hard to build a scalable business model off of being one of a kind. Some jewelry designers will do that, but it is going to be really hard to market one of a kind constantly. You most likely will burn out. I've just seen it. I just know it. You most likely will burn out if you are constantly just pushing one of a kind and unique, handmade, all of that. Those are not your unique value proposition. You need something bigger than being unique or one of a kind as the process. It's going to be really hard to find a one of a kind manufacturer, because the whole ordeal with a manufacturer is that you're buying the same thing over and over again. You can still create uniqueness within it. You can say, hey, this is what you're making. Can you make this instead? And your products can still be unique to you. But trust me, from a marketing perspective, from a sales perspective, from an energy and an effort perspective, one of a kind is not always the easiest, the best, or the most scalable business model. So again, here on this podcast, I am teaching you how to build the most scalable businesses. I am teaching you how to turn into a brand. It is really hard. How many brands in Sephora are one of a kind? How many brands in Target are one of a kind? How many brands in the Fortune 500 are creating one of a kind products? Not many. Right? None, actually, because it is not a scalable business model unless you are willing to build out a team. If that is something that you want to have, you can build out. If you have an art, like if you are a ceramicist or even like a jewelry designer or any of that, like that's something that you might be able to build out another team, have people like assistants help you, but you will want to have inventory at some point. If you want to have a 6-figure, a 7-figure business, you need to most likely move away from that unique one of a kind aspect on this. So some key takeaways here that I just want to recap. It's often cheaper in the long run and raising your profit margin to get things manufactured. It is so much easier on your energy to have products dropped off at your house and have the manufacturer deal with all of the interpersonal things of the creating and the quality control rather than managing a team and the quality control and all of that. Plus, you don't have to pay benefits. You don't have to do hiring. You don't have to do firing. You don't need payroll on those things. There's a lot of expenses when it comes to team members. You also don't have to manage a team, which is very heavy on your energy if it's not something that you really love to do. Manufacturers are definitely more flexible than you think. It will also make your business immediately more scalable. Yes, you will have to change how you market if you have been even running like a launch-based, collection-based business, but it will make your business immediately more scalable, but it changes the way that you market. Now, I do want to I've talked a lot about the pros, and I did say I am not here to advocate only for manufactured products. Let's talk about some of the cons of manufacturing quick before I let you go. Some of the downfalls of manufacturing is that you do have to be more organized. You do have to think further ahead because the lead times here are often a couple of weeks at the very least, 4 to 6 weeks of saying, this is the production, this is what's going on. A lot of times you do need samples of your products, which can take a little bit longer. So you do have to work 3 to 6 months ahead of time, no matter what, especially if it is in China, in Asia, in India, any of those places, Europe, any of that. If you're really shipping over a big ocean, it's going to take some time. Of course, there is an upfront expense, which is a pro and a con. The con of it is, yes, it is an upfront expense, but the pro is that upfront expense actually makes you more profitable in the long run. Debt is not a bad thing to have as a business owner because many businesses actually grow their business on debt because they know that, if you have a 10% interest rate on that, but yet you're making 30% more on profit, you're still making more money having that debt, and then you can pay that off as well. You should be able to build that cash flow up front. I think the biggest cons is really that you have to think further ahead. It does take some of the, the uniqueness, like one of a kind factors out of it. You do have to have a larger order quantity. You might need space to hold inventory. But again, I think a lot of those things are a con, but they're also a pro at the same time. Again, I'm not anti-handmade business. You absolutely can build out your own team to make your products, but in my opinion, oftentimes when people start a business that is a creative, they don't love the team management side of things. I also want to say that you don't have to manufacture every product right off the bat. I have some clients right now that I'm working on helping them manufacture some of their more simple products, helping them get products manufactured that are unique to them, that are their own proprietary everything, but it actually is helping them, just offload even 50% of their orders where they no longer have to make that. Because think of how wonderful it would be to just have to fulfill those orders as opposed to having to, make them and have that whole process and then, figure out what to do with all of that from there as well. All you have to do is fulfill them. This was a rapid fire episode. I hope that this was helpful for you. If you ever have questions on what it takes to manufacture, please feel free to reach out. I am an open book. I do help many clients go through this process and find manufacturers, find areas of where we can find some of these high quality, good, up to their standards, up to their morals, up to their values, manufacturing as well. There are a lot of regulatory agencies on that. Of course, if you really want to do your due diligence, you also can travel to go see the places. That, of course, is an expense, but if you have the morals and the ethics that you want that to be a part of your brand, I'm not saying you should or you shouldn't. That is a personal decision in business. I believe that there are a lot of those that you get to choose how you run your business. If that is a value system that you have, then you definitely can find a way to fit your value system as well. I hope this was helpful for you. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always. Make sure you're subscribed. We put out new episodes every Tuesday and Friday to help you with some of the biggest problems, mistakes, and misconceptions in owning and running a business. I love you, and I will see you in the next episode. If you found today's episode helpful and are looking for more tangible ways to grow your business, make sure you are subscribed to the show. If you want to dive deeper into this topic more, click the link in the show notes and join our completely free podcast community where we dive into every single podcast topic, as well as give some bonus support and free coaching calls. And finally, if you are interested in getting my eyes on your business to find your hidden opportunities to scale, apply to work with me one-on-one in the show notes or on our website. Remember, it's not enough to listen. Don't forget to implement too. I love ya. I'll see you in the next episode.